Once more, the oral history microphone is on the road, and the road happens to be the Jackson School Road. And I'd say out, at least in the general direction of Brewers, Harvey, whatever you want to call it. We're visiting today with J.T. Norsworthy. What do you call this neighborhood, Mr. Norsworthy?
Well, neighborhood is called Flatwood.
Flatwood?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
It always had been a Flatwood.
Mm-hmm. And we're delighted that you allowed us to come, and first we want to find out a little bit more about you. Were you born somewhere near here?
I was born in Callaway County.
Callaway?
Near Kirksey in 1914.
I knew some Norsworthys. In fact,
there were quite a few Norsworthys around Kirksey.
There was one named Reldon that lived.
He's a first cousin of mine.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And Roy, you know, the one
yes,
that
yes, I know.
run the lumber yard. He was Roy's brother, my first cousin.
Yes, sir. So, in this neighborhood, of course, the county line doesn't mean a whole lot. You just kind of float back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
It's all rather level, good land. And so you were born in Callaway. Where did you go to? Well, no, let's don't get to that next. Let's ask who your father was.
Will Norsworthy.
And your mother, before she married, was?
Lola Jackson.
Lola Jackson, and you're on the Jackson School Road, so.
You remember Dewey Jackson when he was jailer in Benton?
Yes, I surely do.
Well, that was my uncle, my mother's brother.
There was a man named Rob Jackson who was my uncle by marriage, and he lived near Hickory Grove Church Road just over in Callaway, a little north of Wadesboro.
I don't remember him.
So I didn't know whether you knew that group of Jacksons or not. The worlds of Jacksons, of course.
Yes.
Famous in history, there was Stonewall Jackson, the general, and Andrew Jackson, the president, and so on. All right. Do you remember any of your grandparents?
Well, my grandpa Jackson is the only one that was living after I was born. My grandfather and grandmother Norsworthy died before I was born. And I don't know anything about them. I just remember my grandfather Jackson.
Was your dad a farmer?
Yes, he was, and I mean he traded in livestock too, on the side.
Yeah. Well, many people, in order to do a little better than farming alone would do. You know, it's always been tough to dig a living out of the ground with row crops.
It sure has.
And it's especially tough right now.
That's right.
Farmers' markets are just terrible situations.
They got so much invested now. That's what makes it so bad.
Yes, when my dad farmed, it didn't cost anything much.
No.
He had a double shovel and a 13 Oliver breaking plow and 2 mules and a cultivator and a corn planter and a mowing machine.
That's the way we started out, right. Before tractors, you know, were built.
Yeah. Now, where did you go to school?
Well, I went to school at Church Grove.
Church Grove?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then.
Now, that's the one not too far from Benton? On near the Sinkhole Hill?
Yes, 2 miles in the valley from the Sinkhole Hill.
Oh, I know where it is, where it was.
Then in 1929, we moved and went to Callaway County and stayed 1 year, if you remember, on Clint Drinker's farm. Do you remember Clint Drinker?
He was sheriff.
He was sheriff at the time we went there.
Sure, I remember Clint Drinker.
I mean, we raised a lot of tobacco on his farm, and I went to Cherry Corner School. You remember Cherry Corner?
I absolutely do. I've taken a lot of cream there to sell. There was a little store. Now, let me see.
Yeah, the little store
was
back this side of the school.
Uh-huh, yeah.
And
that road made a turn, the highway did, right around D. Grogan's house and went up to the store. Then you had to dogleg just a little bit to get over to the downtown Cherry Corner.
Right.
There was a Cherry Corner Baptist Church right in there.
I went to church there some.
Yeah, well, I've been there as a visitor. and so on.
And my teacher when I went to Cherry Corner was Rollin Winchester.
I knew him. Now,
Rollin Winchester became a
Baptist
minister,
preacher.
you
He
know,
was
and-
at Lone Oak a long
well,
time.
and Benton maybe some of the time.
Yes, yes. In a little earlier period, I think, he was in Benton.
Well,
And let's see, Rollins had a young brother named Leon. I think he made a Baptist preacher.
oh, did he?
Believe he did. I went to school with him at a place called Stone in
He had a
Galilee.
brother named Talmadge too. I don't know if you knew him or not.
Oh, yes, I knew him well. All right, so we've got you pegged pretty well
Now
here.
in Church Grove, when I went to Church Grove, Genoa Philbeck was one of my teachers at Church Grove.
The one that married the funeral
Right,
home
right.
and so on, yeah.
She was a wonderful teacher.
Well, that's great. I knew Miss Genoa, and she always seemed to me like she'd been a fine person.
She was, and when I go in the funeral home out there, she'd say, "This is one of my boys."
Oh, I'll tell you, it does me good for somebody to say that. The older I get, the better I like it
Yeah,
to hear them say, now that's one of my boys.
yeah.
So, Miss Genoa Philbeck, well, I certainly knew her. Fred Philbeck, of course, the one she
Yes,
married.
that's right.
And, well, now, you, let's see, over in Callaway, were you still in school when you moved over there or not?
In 29, that was when I was in the 8th grade in 1929.
Oh, yeah.
Under Rollin Winchester.
Under Rollins
Right.
Winchester, yeah.
And then when we came back to Marshall County, then in 30, well, I started high school at Benton.
You know, I just happened to think of something else about the Winchesters now. They weren't too far from New Providence on a
Right.
road that ran from there out to the Concord Highway.
Uh-huh.
And it was then, there was a Methodist church there at that point called
New Hope.
New Hope.
Right.
And my school teacher at Stone, one of them, I think they changed about every year. Let's see, one was Hilda Clyde Grogan Hart, Ed Grogan's daughter. And one was Hugh Hurt. And the other was Winchester's brother. Now, what was his name?
And now the older ones I didn't know.
Uh-huh. Well, anyway, it was Rollins Winchester's brother, Otho.
Otho, I didn't know him.
Otho Winchester,
Now
married
my
Kitty
sister,
Wells.
Stone School out you were talking about, my older sister went to Stone, and of course she had to walk to school, see,
Uh-huh.
and I wasn't old enough to go to school, but I'd have to go out, walk and go with her. And I'd have to stay in school and may not even old enough to be in school.
We had a lot of fun there, and I believe Reldon Norsworthy married a girl that I went to Stone School with, named Myrtle Thurman.
Yeah.
All right, well, we got you up about grown. Were you having to work on the farm when you were in grade school?
Sure, my dad worked on the farm, and I mean, he worked out a lot.
You dropped tobacco plants, first
Sure
job.
did, and set up with a peg.
Then,
And
wasn't that about the hardest job you ever had?
That's the hardest job, and I said, if I ever do marry, I'm not going to raise tobacco.
Yeah.
And of course, after I married, I didn't raise much. We raised a lot of strawberries out here, you know.
Yes, sir.
Of course, that's just about as hard to work.
Well, yeah. Picking strawberries is awfully hard work.
Well, I didn't do a lot of the picking. I mean, we hauled strawberries to the shed,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, I didn't get to pick very many, but I mean, we'd have hands come in, you know.
But you talk about making money. Now, I've worked a lot of days to try to get $1. I'd get up, we'd start about daylight, and I'd chop corn for a man. You know, back then we didn't have weed killers and so on, and
No.
you'd have to take a gooseneck hoe and chop corn, the grass out of it, weeds and so on. Well, you'd work till sunset. That's a
Sure.
long day. In June, it's about 15 hours, and you make $1.
Right.
Well, I wasn't a good strawberry picker like these professionals that came through, but I'd pick 3 crates. Now, some of them, we've had them that picked, a lot of them picked 5.
Well, some of these that, came in here, some of them could pick 10.
Yeah?
The
believe
most I ever picked in one day was 8 crates.
Yeah.
I got 8 crates one day.
Well, you can see how slow I was. But, of course, I was sort of overseeing it, too, when the other pickers brought in the berries, picking on our place. I'd have to give them. See, you had a little piece of cardboard, didn't you? Hand it
Tickets.
out.
Give them a ticket.
One handy.
Yeah, or
says,
quart or, what, or
Yeah.
crate or whatever it was.
whatever they picked.
Yeah.
So that, of course, took up a good little bit of
Oh,
my time.
yes.
But 3 crates, and listen, you remember we made a nickel a quart? And that is
I've done forgotten what we paid out.
$1.20 a crate. So in one morning, if I could make $3.60, I thought I was rich.
That's right. I mean, that's the only way children could make any money back then.
The kids laugh sometimes. They hardly believe it, but when I started college at Murray in the fall of 40, freshman class made up, and we bought a Model T Ford, an old 25 Touring. And, of course, it wasn't much of a car, but it ran and
Uh-huh.
we painted the thing bright green for the freshman class, and we paid $7.50 for it.
$7 a night.
So, well, I bought a 1927 Roadster from Gus Lamb, a mail carrier, and it had wire wheels, looked about like a Model A, real sporty car.
Mhm.
I gave $35 for that. So, a little money went a long ways.
That's right. First one I ever bought, I gave $100 for it, a 28 Chevy.
Yeah.
I really thought that was something.
Oh, I imagine so. It probably had glass in the windows and so.
Oh, it's tall too and top heavy,
Yeah. All right, so you kept working on the farm. Did you ever leave this part of the country and go to Detroit or anything?
No, I've been here on this place for 50 years. And in 1951, I went to work at Calvert City industrial plant.
Uh-huh.
And I spent 26 years in that plant there.
So you stayed long enough to retire?
Yes, I retired in 76.
Well, tell us about your wife. Who did you marry?
I married Tom and Leila Bird's daughter.
Now, how did you meet her?
Well, I believe at one time, the first time I ever met her, we were moving dirt out there at Benton, building that school there,
Yes, sir.
and I was driving a wagon and team, and she waved at me out the window. And I don't know, I guess we got started from there.
Uh-huh.
We went together over 2 years before we got married.
Yeah.
And
You didn't realize that you'd been hooked with a fishing line or something that
no,
she waved out that window.
no,
But you didn't just jump in and marry instantly.
no, I didn't. We went together 2 years. I was 22 and she was 19.
Mm-hmm. You got better acquainted, and then did you bring her out here to the farm then? And
Well, she lived just a little ways up the road on the farm.
mm-hmm.
And this place here was their farm, but they rented out. It had an old house here that tenants would live in it, and she lived up the road a little ways, and then when we married, we bought this old place, for $500.
Yeah.
Didn't have any money at all. had to borrow the money to buy the place.
So you had to make a leap of faith, so
Right.
to speak. You had to
Right.
believe that you were you were going to do all right, and
That's right.
and you did certainly come through. Now, tell us about that job. You said you and your team, I guess, were working. Now, that paid a little bit more than just a man by himself, didn't it?
Oh, you mean it?
When you're working on the
at
school?
Well, most of the time, yes, you would, you would get about what you would make. You get about the same for the team.
So
You get something like maybe $4 or $5 a day for you and your team. See, and I mean, you had to work all day too.
Oh, you put in a lot of work, but
That's right.
if they were paying 2.5, you and the team would get $5 maybe.
Something like $4 or $5 a day.
Well, you were saving money right and left then.
Well, see, I was still at home at that time, with my dad's. And I mean, children then had to work to help make a living for their families, see.
How many were there in your dad's family?
Oh,
How many brothers and sisters?
I had 5 brothers and 3 sisters.
Oh, me. That made a big family, didn't
It
it?
sure did.
A lot of mouths.
And I
to
was
feed.
the oldest boy. I had one sister older than me. And I mean, we all had to go to field and work.
Now, that threw a little bit of more work on your part in a way, didn't it? You being the oldest
Yes,
one.
it did.
You kind of
I
had to
mean,
take
my
the
dad
lead.
kind of depended on me to be the leader for the other children, see.
Yes, sir. Yeah. All right, now let's talk about your family a little. You married this lovely lady, and you started housekeeping. You bought the place for $500, and I take it that sometime over the years you built this new beautiful brick house.
We built this house in 1959. I sold the old house to a guy in Benton, and he moved it off the lot. And they were digging the foundation an hour from the time the house was in the road, getting ready to build a new one in 1959.
Well, you've been here quite a while then. It's a lovely place.
Yes, I've been on this place, it'll be 50 years, I suppose, about now or something like that.
And after your marriage, I suppose there were children?
Well, my son was born I married in 36, and my son was born in December of 37. And then my daughter, Jane, was born in 41, June the 29th of 41.
Well, she's going to have a birthday next month.
Won't be long, right.
Yeah. Well, now, I knew Jane real well. I know your son when I see him.
Well, I'm sure you know Bobby. He went to Morris State, too.
Yeah. Oh, as I said, I know him when I see him.
Yeah.
I just never was real close to him, and I suppose.
Well, see, he stayed out of school for 4 years before he started to college. Then when Jane graduated from high school, they both started Murray State together in 1959. 2 kids starting to school in 59, and me building this house, I didn't know how I was going to do it.
It was, considering the resources you had, a rather big strain on you.
Right.
And the budget, wasn't it?
But I wanted them to get an education, something that I didn't get.
Well, my wife worked with Jane. I know she's in business at the high school, and of course my wife taught home ec, but she thought Jane was just mighty fine.
Well, I appreciate that.
And of course, I don't want to leave out Mr. Miller. He was a good principal.
He sure was.
And now, of course, working still in the central office of the school system. So,
He was always just like one of the children to my wife and me. And I mean, he just do as much for us as he would his own mother and dad.
Yeah.
And even after my wife died, he'd do for me just like my own children would see. He'd come over here and stay nights with me, you know, when I'd have to stay by myself. And
How long has your wife been dead?
be 2 years, 8th of this October.
Well, they're not terribly far from you on the.
Just across the field, it's about a mile just across the field.
Hmm. They live out on Highway 58.
58, right.
But as you say, if you go across the field, well, how has Benton changed since you first remember going there and working? Do you remember any of the older stores that are not there
Well,
anymore?
I really don't remember the old courthouse. See, I probably, if I could just, had it in mind, I could have probably remembered it because I don't even remember when it burned.
I think it is December 1914.
Well,
So-
I was just born then.
So you weren't old
I
enough
couldn't
to-
remember it then, see.
No.
But I remember the new courthouse and everything, changing everything around the square and
Yeah.
everything.
I can recall when the post office was on the corner where I think of it as the dime store. Of course, that building burned, and they're putting a little park in there now at, that's 12th Street.
Uh-huh.
And let's see, it wasn't Mr. Heath's store along
Yes,
in there.
where they were building that, some kind of art and craft there on the
Uh-huh.
corner. That's where the store was then.
Yeah.
Morgan and Heath was the name of the store.
Yeah, Morgan and Heath.
Right.
And I believe Miss Margaret told me once that they even sold coffins.
I believe they did
And
at one
It
time.
was kind of a funeral home, so
Uh-huh.
to speak. Of course, funeral homes didn't render quite the
No.
same services they do now. But in that sense, I've seen Benton change an awful lot.
And of course, back then, we didn't have the one-way streets like we got now.
No. And we had a railroad station.
Railroad station.
I hated to see them take that road up.
Yeah, I know it. I did
Paducah.
too.
Really was terrible. Well, let's see. Can you think of any particular changes in your life that was very exciting, maybe to you and your wife? Do you remember when you bought your first radio, for example? Or
Yes, I remember first radio we bought it second-handed, and I think it had to have a battery.
uh-huh.
And the battery run down, we'd be so disappointed, because we couldn't hear a program.
Yeah. Oh, I remember that. Our first radio was a battery set.
That's right, and we'd want to come in of a afternoon, we'd be working on the farm, and hear Lum and Abner, and
Yeah. Oh, that's right. We'd take you now to Pine Ridge and Lum and Abner and the old Jot 'em Down store. Oh, we got a lot of fun out of that because much of it reflected the life that I had lived. We
and Amos and Andy too. That was another one.
Oh, yes.
We listened to.
always got that one.
Yeah.
In fact, we didn't have a radio till 1939, I believe it was, and the war came along, and a lot of people had gotten electricity. REA had built, but we didn't till 47. So we kept that old battery radio and listened to it for 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
But you'd along about the time. Batteries lasted a long time. Seems to me they ran about 6 months.
Oh, they last a long time. They would.
But usually we'd get a new battery in the fall season and listen all through the winter. And then if the battery,
Didn't have no way of charging them. We'd have to take them someplace,
yeah,
or get a new one.
right. Well, that was a highlight in our life. Did you have an Aladdin lamp?
Sure did. That's what the children studied by, Aladdin lamp.
Mhm.
And where that got off to, I just don't know.
Well, I still have my mother's.
Well,
Aladdin
mine
lamp.
got away, and I just don't know what happened to it, but we had a Aladdin lamp.
Mhm.
And that's what the children have studied by.
Yeah. One of the jobs that we had was to, on Saturday, was to take the chimneys off and wash them in good soap and water and shine it up in was kind of, I guess it was a dishwashing liquid or something or other.
They get black spots on them. You'd have to put on a new wick, you know.
Yeah, and you had to be awfully careful with the Aladdin. That mantle was just ashes.
Mhm.
If you jarred it very much or let a big blast of wind come on it or blow your breath on it,
Right.
I know, well, I won't tell who this was, but because I wouldn't want to embarrass them. But you know, the old number 2 burners, you'd come in and when you got ready to go to bed or turn out the light, you just blew down that chimney and blew it out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they'd gotten this new Aladdin lamp. And of course, you're supposed to just turn it out, just turn the wick
Right.
down till it went out. Well, if you blew in there, it blew the mantle away. Well, he forgot that. Blew down in it, of course, blew the mantle away,
Right.
and I don't know what they cost then. It was probably a dime or 15 cents, but they were hard to come
That's
by.
right.
Well, tell me what you did down at Calvert City.
Well, I mean, at that time, why, it was a lot, you know, more manual labor then than it is now. And I mean, what I did most of the time that I was there, I weighed raw materials, you know,
Yes, sir.
and dumped them in big skips, and it would go up in bunks, you know. And
What company was that?
Pittsburgh Metallurgic at the first, you know.
Yes, yes, sir.
And then they sold out to Arco Alloy later on.
Mm-hmm.
And now I believe that SKW or something like that operates it
Yeah.
now.
There's been several changes of ownership. My brother-in-law, Pat Bloomingberg, my
Yeah, I
wife's
worked
brother,
with Pat.
works there, and
Pat operated the crane.
I can't tell you what the name of it is exactly.
Well, I don't know either. I retired in '76.
Well, so you've had a lot of hard work, but that was a good, steady source of income.
It sure was. I mean, we had good fringe benefits,
Uh-huh.
paid vacations, you know, and
And you're enjoying the
holiday
retirement
pay.
parts of
Right.
it right
And
now.
I mean, they pay my insurance right now. You know.
Well, Mr. Norsworthy, the 30 minutes has gone by pretty fast, 29 of them. Do you have any story that you'd like to put on here, that something that you've thought about that you want to make sure you get on the program before we have to sign off?
Offhand, I can't think of any. I just
You don't have any big ghost stories or jokes or...
no, I don't believe I have any ghost stories.
Okay. Well, it's been a pleasure talking with
Well,
you.
I've enjoyed it, though.
Brings back a lot of old memories, and I'm sure for many people who are listening in, it'll bring some joy to them too.
Well, I hope so.
And once more, this is Ray Mofield. We've been talking on the oral history program, and we're visiting today on Jackson School Road with J.T. Norsworthy. We return you now to our studio in Benton.